I never believed in ghosts, or curses, or anything you can't explain with logic. At least not until the night I found the mirror. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon when I discovered it. I was clearing out the attic of the old house I had inherited from my late aunt. The place was filled with dusty boxes and forgotten relics. In the corner, hidden beneath a moth-eaten sheet, stood an antique mirror with an ornate silver frame. It was taller than me, with delicate carvings of twisted vines and staring eyes. I wiped away the thick layer of dust and stared at my reflection. But something felt off. The glass seemed to shimmer, like water disturbed by a faint breeze. I shook my head, convincing myself it was just my imagination. I left the mirror there and went downstairs, eager to be done with the attic. That night, the trouble began. I woke around 3 a.m. to the sound of footsteps above me. Slow, deliberate footsteps, pacing back and forth. The attic. I sat up, heart racing. I lived alone. Gripping a flashlight, I crept upstairs. The attic door, which I'd locked earlier, was ajar. I pushed it open with a trembling hand. The mirror stood uncovered, and in its reflection, I saw something impossible. A figure standing just behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked back at the mirror, the figure was still there. A woman in a tattered black dress with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. "Who are you?" I whispered. Her mouth moved, though no sound emerged. I leaned closer. Her lips formed 3 distinct words. "Let me in." I stumbled backward, fleeing the attic. I locked the door and shoved a chair under the handle. Sleep was impossible. I sat in the living room, flashlight gripped in both hands, heart racing until dawn. The next morning, I convinced myself it was a hallucination, stress, exhaustion, maybe a trick of the old glass. I went back to the attic, determined to prove it was nothing. The mirror was empty, just a reflection of me. No woman, no eerie presence. That night, however, the footsteps returned, louder, more insistent. I stayed downstairs, too afraid to investigate. Around 4 a.m., my phone buzzed with a notification, "Motion detected in attic." I opened the security app with shaking hands. The camera feed showed the attic empty, except for the mirror. The woman's face was pressed against the glass, her eyes locked onto the camera. And then, slowly, she turned to face the attic door. The feed cut to black. A creak sounded from upstairs, the attic door opening. I dialed 911, whispering to the dispatcher about the intruder. The operator assured me officers were en route. As I waited, the footsteps descended the stairs. My front door was locked, but the footsteps stopped right outside the living room. I pointed my flashlight toward the hallway. The woman stood there motionless, her pale face tilted unnaturally to one side. "Let me in," she said, but her mouth didn't move. The voice came from the mirror still upstairs. The doorbell rang. The police. I scrambled to the door, yanked it open, and 2 officers rushed in. When I turned back, the woman was gone. The police searched the house. The attic was locked from the inside, and the mirror was shattered into a web of jagged cracks. But there, etched into the glass, were the same 3 words. "Let me in." I sold the house a week later. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in my new apartment, I hear footsteps. And if I glance at the mirrors, I see her, still watching, still smiling, still waiting. I grew up in a small town surrounded by dense, ancient woods. The locals called it Whispering Woods, and everyone knew the rule: never go in after dark. My parents told me it was just a silly superstition, but I wasn't so sure. The forest always seemed alive, like it was holding its breath when you passed by. One summer night, when I was 17, my friend Jake dared me to go in. "Just 5 minutes," he said, laughing. "Prove you're not scared." I wasn't scared. At least that's what I told myself. So, flashlight in hand, I stepped past the tree line while Jake stayed by the road, the glow of his phone illuminating his nervous smile. The woods swallowed me whole. The air turned cold, and the usual sounds of crickets and rustling leaves vanished. It was silent, completely unnaturally silent. I checked my phone. No signal. I glanced back. The road and Jake were gone. Just trees in every direction. My heart raced. "Jake?" I called. No answer. Just the faint sound of whispering. I turned toward the noise and my flashlight flickered. The whispers grew louder, distinct words forming. "Come closer. Come see." Against every instinct, I moved toward the voice. The trees seemed to shift around me, guiding me deeper. The beam of my flashlight caught something ahead, an old, weathered stone well. I approached the well and peered inside. The whispers echoed from the darkness below. "Help us," they said. "Find us." Suddenly my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Jake. "Where are you?" I spun around, relieved. But the forest behind me had changed. The path was gone, replaced by twisted roots and shadowy figures standing between the trees. My flashlight caught their faces. Pale, hollow-eyed children. Their lips moved in unison, whispering, "Help us. She's coming." "Who's coming?" I whispered. They pointed past me. I turned back to the well. A woman stood there, tall, gaunt, with tangled black hair and eyes that reflected my light like an animal's. Her mouth twisted into a grin. "You shouldn't be here," she said. My legs refused to move. The whispering grew deafening. The children spoke again, their voices desperate. "Run!" I ran. Branches lashed at my face. The whispers turned into screams. Behind me, footsteps, heavy and fast. My phone buzzed again. I glanced down. "She's behind you." I burst through the tree line, collapsing onto the road. Jake was there, pale and wide-eyed. "Dude, what happened?" he asked. I looked back. The woods were still and quiet. The woman was gone. We drove away in silence. The next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I searched for information about the woods. I found an old newspaper article. "Local children missing, last seen near Whispering Woods well." Witnesses report a woman in black. The date? Exactly 50 years ago to the night. I haven't been back since. But sometimes, when I pass by, I hear the whispers, and I know she's still there, waiting. It started on a cold, rainy night. I was alone in my apartment, curled up on the couch with a blanket and a half-empty mug of tea. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows like unseen fingers tapping for attention. I remember glancing at the clock, 11:47 p.m. I was about to turn off the TV and head to bed when I heard it. A voice, faint but distinct. "Help me," it whispered. I froze. The sound was coming from the hallway, just beyond my front door. My heart raced as I strained to listen. The voice repeated, a little louder this time. "Help me, please." I stood, my pulse pounding in my ears. I crept toward the door, every instinct screaming to stay put. Peeking through the peephole, I saw nothing. The hallway was empty, bathed in dim, flickering light. "Who's there?" I called out. No response, just the distant hum of the building's heating system. I shook my head. convincing myself it was just the wind playing tricks on me. I locked the deadbolt, double-checked it, and went back to the couch. Minutes passed. Then, again, the voice. "Help me. I'm cold. Please, open the door." This time, it was clearer, more desperate. I returned to the peephole, heart hammering in my chest. The hallway was still empty, but then I noticed something odd. The shadows under the door. There were no feet, no sign of anyone standing there. Yet the voice was right outside. I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" I asked. A pause. Then it replied, "Don't you remember me?" A chill washed over me. The voice sounded familiar now, like a distorted version of someone I'd known long ago. My hands trembled as I gripped the doorknob. "No," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "I don't know you." The voice let out a soft, broken laugh. "You let me in before." Panic surged through me. I backed away from the door, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. The operator answered, and I hurriedly explained what was happening. "Please send someone," I begged. "There's someone outside my door." "Stay on the line," the operator said. "An officer is on the way." I clutched the phone like a lifeline, keeping my eyes on the door. The voice continued, now angry. "Why did you call them?" it hissed. "You shouldn't have done that." Suddenly, the door handle jiggled. The deadbolt held, but the sound was relentless. A rapid, frenzied rattling. I backed into the corner of the room, heart racing. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The door handle stopped moving. Silence followed. Then, knocking. 3 sharp, deliberate knocks. "I'm here," a voice called from the hallway. But it was different this time. Deeper, more authoritative. "Police," it said. "Open the door." Relief flooded me. I rushed to the peephole, but the hallway was still empty. "No," I whispered. The voice repeated, more insistent. "Ma'am, open the door. It's the police." I didn't move. My phone was still in my hand. I lifted it to my ear. The operator was still on the line. "They're here," I said. "No," the operator replied, her voice tight with concern. "They're still 5 minutes away." I dropped the phone and stumbled back, terror gripping me. The voice outside shifted again, returning to the familiar whisper. "Let me in," it said softly. "I know you're scared. I can help you." The knocking resumed. Harder, faster. The door shook on its hinges. I braced myself against the wall, tears streaming down my face. Then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. Footsteps echoed down the hall, growing fainter with each step. When the real police arrived minutes later, they found no signs of forced entry, no footprints in the hallway, nothing on the security cameras, but on the inside of my front door, scratched into the wood at eye level, were 3 words. "See you soon."